But first, this episode is brought to you by FFW Motorsports. Have you ever showed up to the track and realized you forgot some goggles or your tear-offs or had a chain break? Well, nothing is better than knowing we have a reliable parts vendor like FFW Motorsports right there at the track when we need them.
Whether you need tires, chain lube, goggles, or race fuel, FFW has got you covered, helping you stay on the gas without missing a moto.
Catch FFW Motorsports trackside at Mesquite MX. They're committed to giving riders top-notch service and fair prices. It's about more than parts. It's about keeping you on the track and in the race.
Big shout out to FFW Motorsports for supporting the Holeshot Hustle and the moto community.
All right, let's drop the gate and dive right into the Miller family's incredible journey.
All right, let's do it.
How are you guys doing?
We're doing good.
Yeah, it's a windy day out there. We blew all the way in from St. George.
Well, we had a pre-interview with you guys about a week ago, and man, the story is crazy and it's long, and there's a lot, especially with two boys in motocross. I was thinking, Chris, though, that maybe the best place to start would be like, your story goes back a long way, like all the way back to the 70s. I was wondering if you could take us back to the 70s and tell us how motocross began for you.
Well, for sure, it was 2 days or two boys in motocross in the 70s. Me and my brother, he's 11 months older than me. We were kind of Irish twins, and I didn't have that big of a interest in motorcycles, but I had an interest in hanging out with my brother, and he had a big interest in motorcycles, and he was the first one to score a Elsinore 125, and I got stuck. Dad was a Harley guy and a water ski and hot boat racer. He didn't like the dirt that much. And anyway, I think the first bike we might have got was some kind of 100. And back in the day, those 100s were terrible, heavy trail bikes. They were not for the track. But I ended up Kerry started racing, and he was the one that took me to the track, and he was the one that I don't remember getting any coaching, and coaching from him might not have been very good because he was he was all throttle, and he was full throttle the whole time. In fact, he had a reputation, they called him OD, and it wasn't because he did drugs, it's because he rode his motorcycle flat out till he crashed, and then he'd get up. And so that's the way it was in the race. I always overhauled him.
He OD'd on throttle then, that's what you're saying?
And I was OD junior. I never knew what that meant, but all I know is that he'd pass me by somewhere on the first lap because I'd get a good start. And then I'd see him down, and I'm like, oh man. And then second lap, he'd go flying by me again, and same corner. Anyway, I don't even know. He just crashed so much, and so I overhauled him. But he was a good rider, and he sent it. Okay, I was very careful, and I didn't want to get hurt. It seemed like he didn't care.
Some guys are like that,
but he did get some trophies and everything. I had some injuries. The first thing I learned about motocross, about motorcycles, is you always wear a helmet, even when you're screwing around.
Yeah. Oh yeah, like my concussions. If I wasn't wearing the helmet, I would have probably lost my life.
All the gnarly accidents happen in the pit, right? Yeah, so you got to wear a helmet anytime you're riding.
Yeah.
Well, in my case, I had a kid come to school, and we had a field back there, and he says, "Look, I got a TM Suzuki just like yours," and I was going to show him how to ride it because, I raced, so I must have been pretty good.
Yeah.
But not smart, and I wasn't good anyway. But he handed me his helmet, and I wasn't going to put on his sweaty helmet, so I just said, "I'll just make one trip around and show you how it's done." And I went over the bars after I started tank slapping flat out in fifth gear, and dug a trench with my head, and got a major head trauma and fractured C7. I didn't know that at the time, but that was the first lesson, was I'm never going to get on a motorcycle without a helmet.
Yeah.
And the second lesson is that you probably better tell your parents what you're doing, because that was another thing that I I didn't tell my dad about it because he would have took my motorcycle away for good.
Oh yeah.
And but I found out the damage to my head and my neck many years later.
So you broke, what did you say, your C7?
Yeah.
And you didn't find out that you'd broken it until years later.
Yeah, I was in chiropractic college and somebody took an x-ray of me and I saw that and I knew where it happened. But that wasn't enough to quit racing. I mean, I still went out and raced and
Wow.
and then I went over a jump and, you flat land and case every jump. There was no landings. And it was on the start, so everybody was together, and I went up in the air, and two guys collided, and I landed on them. And I don't know how, but my left fibula was fractured, and I got back on the bike and couldn't shift. And I just thought, man, if I don't know how this happens, and I don't know how to not make it happen, I think I'm just going to give up racing because I at that point I feel like I needed a better coach than the full throttle brother I had. Mm. So I gave it up, and he went on, and he moved to Balboa Island and was rooming with Bobby Shorts and Bruce Penhall. I think still lives there, but these were some of the big names in Speedway, and he decided to take up Speedway racing.
Now, Speedway, is that where they kind of drift around a circle track kind of thing?
Yeah, they have a 500cc 4-valve alcohol burning Jawas that have no brakes, and they go sideways all the way around the track, 0 to 60 in 3 seconds. And my brother, once again, I never went to Costa Mesa without seeing him hit the wall.
Is that right?
So, but yeah, he was kind of in the group there, and Bobby Schwartz and Bruce Penhall actually went to Poland and won the world finals. I believe I think that was in '81, and so Speedway was a really big deal. And unfortunately, my brother was wrong place at the wrong time, and was in a plane crash, a small plane that was attempting to fly from. They went from Havasu to what's the little town where you can gamble across the river?
Laughlin?
Laughlin. And then on the way back from Laughlin, they crashed. Everybody died. But
wow,
it was a hard time for me. I mean, that was, when my parents divorced, they said, "Who do you want to live with?" And I said, "My brother."
Yeah.
And he was my everything.
How old was he when he passed away?
28.
Oh man.
28. So
that's terrible.
But I don't know. These boys, I think they might feel his presence every once in a while because he never totally leaves the dirt.
Yeah.
He's still got to be around somewhere.
So you guys never actually even got a chance to meet him.
No.
But you're carrying on a legacy through some bike numbers, huh? That's cool.
Yep. How
did that affect you moving forward? Where did you go from there, Chris? Like that had to be a terrible tragedy. How old were you when this happened? What was the age difference?
27. So 11 months.
Wow, very close. That's right. You told us Irish twin.
Well, it's interesting because you think, did you get a Speedway bike or did you get any of his stuff? And I'm like, no. Come to think of it, I didn't. But what I did get. I was always trying to get him to give up the dirt and come back to the water because we were raised on the water. And I had I had bought Dad's old race boat, and I wanted him to buy a boat. Well, he did buy a boat, and I told him, not that one. Don't buy that boat. It's too old. And anyway, he bought it anyways, and you would never believe how we restored this boat. It's the most beautiful 20-foot V-bottom Challenger, and he put a blown Chrysler Hemi in it with it was just quite a boat. And anyway, the only thing that he made sure of that last day before he went to Havasu is he told his wife at the time, he says, this is my brother's boat. And I thought that was kind of interesting, but when I sat in that boat and fired that beast up, it was like a top fuel dragster on the water. It was incredible. I mean, he kept that memory alive for me. And so I kept that boat for quite some time. And then I took the blown Hemi and put it in a 46 Plymouth, and we called it Whiplash. And he was still part of my whole life. And then when that kind of died down, because I met my true love and we got married, and I sold all that stuff because I knew we were going to have some boys. And now they dominate our lives with dirt, motorcycles, and once again, my brother's memory lives on better than ever.
So tell us how you ended up getting into. You became a chiropractor, right? Was that the result of the motocross injuries? How did that happen?
Oh, I had to get a few car accidents, like, hit a parked Cadillac on 70 miles an hour on the freeway and blew up my low back. So that's when I really decided I wasn't going to be a concrete guy anymore.
Jeez.
And needed to be a chiropractor. And so I did go to school and I got my degree and started working as a chiropractor. But it was not too long after that
because you had said that you had been in a car accident, and I couldn't remember if it was the result of a motocross crash and the brakes to your neck, or if it had more to do with that car accident.
Yeah,
gotcha. So, and your dad, right? He was a chiropractor as well. Is that correct?
My stepdad's a chiropractor, and my biological dad was a concrete guy that raced the boats.
Oh, okay.
And my stepdad's an incredible athlete, but he thought that we were nuts to ever get on a motorcycle. But anyway, yeah, so it was, we had a cousin that said, "Hey, we're going to Moab. You guys want to come along?" And I think you guys wanted to go to that, right? It was your cousin. Did he say we're going to Moab? And we knew he had motorcycles.
I don't really remember it.
You were pretty small, or?
I don't know. I was like 9.
What year was this?
2019 or?
Yeah, 2019. I just remember me and my cousin were like best friends, and we just were like, "Hey, we're going to Moab, rip some razors, dirt bikes," and I was like, "I don't think I've been in either one of those, so like, let's do it."
You were like, "Heck yeah."
Yeah. Yeah.
So you head over to Moab, and what did they have for you to ride over there?
Well, I rode the 110, and I was like, pretty sure I was pretty scared to get on it. It was like, I don't know, because I had never been on one before. So, I don't know.
We were talking about that earlier today, though, when he got on that thing and the sun was going down and we had the headlights behind him so we get back to camp. And he's just pinning that thing and, in the sand. He's just all over the place. And we were impressed that he was pinning it like that.
Yeah, I was just swerving because it was so sketchy because it was like deep sand, and I knew if I stopped, then I would get stuck.
Chris, what was it like to see Nate and Jake ride for the first time in Moab?
Well, the amazing thing about Jake is that his cousin gave him this KX85 that he hated because it always fouled plugs. And Jake couldn't figure out why, because he never fouled a plug the whole weekend. And he's just kind of a natural on that 2-stroke. And I don't remember him ever even laying it over. And he kept up with his cousin. And his cousin's been trained and raced. And I don't know, what was his cousin riding? Was he on a 125 or 250 or?
Jack's cousin?
I don't remember what he's riding anyway, but it was an upgrade from the 85, right? And you had to keep up with him, but yeah. So I was just amazed how they weren't crashing it, and they were liking it. And for me, I was like, I never told them really much about my racing days and my brother. I just thought, hey, if they want to borrow some bikes and ride in Moab, we'll just do this every year.
Right. So your first time on a dirt bike was a 110.
Yeah.
No clutch. So.
And your first time was on a KX85, is that?
No, I rode the 110 first.
Oh, did you?
Okay.
To warm up a little bit. And like, I was pretty confused because when you go from the 110, that's just shift up 4 gears. And then you go, I just remember being on that bike and I was just like, how does this even, like, there's neutral after first gear? Like, that's stupid. Like, it doesn't make any sense. Why'd neutral be after first gear? And then I just remember he was like, it's a 2-stroke. You got to like get to the end of all the gears. So I would just be going down this dirt road just all the way.
Yeah.
And I just remember that first, like, getting the power band and I was just, whoa, like, that's some power right there.
Yeah, for sure. Did you love it though?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, you guys having the time of your life, I'll bet.
Yeah, that's because I remember riding the 110 and I wanted one so bad. And then I got the 85 and I was like, I need this.
So you guys are hooked from that point.
Oh, yeah.
That's it, huh?
Yeah, definitely.
And what did you do about that, Dad? Like, how did you manage that?
Well, I just talked to Mom, and Mom's always been supportive of this. It's been great. But I said, hey, it's going to be $2,500 for this bike. What do you think? And we agreed that he'd pay half. And, and then we just like, we got some hand-me-down gear, not much of anything. We had to go to KSL. We didn't have a helmet. We had nothing. And it was quite, took a little bit to get everything and get to that racetrack the first time.
So did you guys didn't start out on a track, did you? Like, what were you guys thinking when you got these bikes? Were you thinking we're just going to trail ride and have fun, or did you already have your sights set on a racetrack?
Well, I remember when I was first, I was saving up for the bike, actually. The whole summer I was just trying to save up, get all the money, and I remember my cousin invited me to go training with him. And it was I was borrowing the trainer's bike. They don't do training anymore, but it was Sorensen MX training up in Draper area. And I just remember I was borrowing his KLX 140, learning like keeping your elbows up, attack position. And then I just remember we got the bike, and then I was like, oh, I want to race. Like, I want to go to Jordan River, but like far from our house. So I just remember going to Mesquite on the unprepped days. Track was completely dry. The ruts were all dried out. And I just remember I loved it because there was no fast guys there and I could just do my own thing.
Yeah.
What was the process like getting them ready for their first race?
Well, that was it. Like when we bought the 110, the guy says, hey, I got some extra helmets. And I'm like, yeah, I'll take anything. So, I mean, I was just trying to gather up the stuff. I couldn't believe how much stuff it took.
Yeah.
And so it took a couple months, but Jake was his first day at the track. People noticed your gear, right?
Yeah, I remember I pulled up with a black fly racing jersey and the neon orange Troy Lee pants, and everyone was like, this guy's on a 2018 bike. Like, that thing's ancient. He's got the old gear mismatched. He's got some cheap O'Neill boots. Like, who is this guy?
Yeah, you run into those guys once in a while at the track.
Yeah.
That's funny.
But he had passion right from the start.
So let me ask you, Dad. I know when Logan decided he went from just riding for the fun of it, and we were doing some trail riding, to seeing some videos and like,
Yeah.
Dad, I want to race.
I was just like, we were watching basically like YouTube tutorials on like how to ride properly and like put your toes in and like attack position. And then I saw like some of the videos and they'd go out and race. And then I was like thinking about that overnight. And then I'm like watching them again. I'm like, what's this, Dad? And then he's like, I think they're racing. I'm like, I want to race too. So then it took them a few months. And my dad's like, I don't think they make dirt bikes that small or race even that little. So then my dad did some research and sure enough, they do.
Well, I know, like, for me and my wife, when he started talking about wanting to race, it was a little bit of a mental process for us. We thought it was nuts. I wasn't even sure they had kids ride race that small. Once we found out that they did, it was just more of a mental process. Like, oh my gosh, that's super dangerous. So, considering your past with motocross and your brother and things like that, how was that process for you when they started talking about racing?
Yeah, I think that we were like, hey, let's get some dirt bikes for Moab next year. And I never really talked much about it because it was such a dangerous sport. I really didn't even think my wife would be interested in this at all. And I'm not sure I was.
Yeah.
And so.
And were you interested in it?
Yeah, I was.
From way over there?
I was nervous about it, but I didn't want them to have regrets. Well, you never let me try this thing, and maybe I could have been really good at it.
That was exactly kind of where my heart was. So what she said, you probably couldn't hear it on camera, but she said she was nervous about it, but she certainly didn't want to be the person that held him back. And I think ultimately that's where my heart was. My wife was much more like, I don't think we want to do it, but I was like, I don't want to be the person that stands between him and his dreams. So yeah, that makes sense.
And then that's when I started talking to you guys about the race days. And I have pictures of my brother on a speedway track. And so I don't know. It's hard not to, even when you go to Moab, it's hard not to talk about the old times, you know?
Yeah.
And so I think I started talking about it more, and that he was listening. I didn't know he was listening.
Did you guys have much of a concept of your uncle at that time when you were riding? So you just kind of found out about it after you started riding? And
No, I just remember when I was saving up for that bike, the KX85, my dad was just like telling me all because he was getting excited about it, just telling me all these stories. And that's when I was just like, yeah, because you have to race with the number. And I was like, oh, then if he was 24, then I want to be 24. And then I just remember the day I got that bike, I went into the garage and there was duct tape 24 on there that my dad put on. And I was like,
nice.
I was just in love with the bike. I was just like, wow, this is perfect.
So you were like, absolutely carry that torch, huh?
Yeah. And then what'd you say, Nate?
Well, then, after him getting a dirt bike, I really wanted one too. And since I started doing good on that 110 that I rode, I wanted him to get me one of those.
And what's your number? And what's the story behind that?
Well, so my number right now is 32, but before it used to be 21 because I used to just like that number. But then since my older brother, his number was 24, and my uncle was the older brother, and my dad was the younger brother. I'm the younger brother, so I just took my dad's number.
That makes sense.
And now my number is 324. You put them together, but I don't ride.
Not yet, right?
I'm on I'm trying to get going on the Suron.
Yeah. Well, that's cool. So you guys, you've got your gear together, you've got the bikes. So where did you end up finally hitting the track? Well, it was Mesquite. I guess you used to practice in Mesquite. Take us to your first race then, I guess. How did that happen?
Well, my main memories at the race was just kind of everyone looking at me, and the one thing I didn't like that day was just kind of felt out of place because I didn't know anyone. I honestly didn't know what I was doing. I remember we parked next to this one dude that was friendly, and he was like, hey, your race, you got to go 2 before, you got to get into staging. And I was like, all right. And I remember I went my first moto. It was New Year's 2021, and I got the first gate pick, and everyone was like, oh my gosh, dude, that's crazy. And I had no idea what I was doing. So in my head, first gate pick was the first gate. So I went to the very left gate on and if anyone's been to Mesquite, you know that the very left gate is not even lined up with the start. It's literally, you'd have to turn all the way to even make the corner. So I was like, oh, this is BS, dude. I hate, why did I get first gate pick? That's dumb. And then I look at everyone else, and they're going towards the doghouse, and I'm like, what are they doing? This is cheating.
I was no help.
Yeah, and then everyone was like, what are you doing? And I was like, first gate. What do you mean? and then I was just from then on, I was like, okay, that was not the move.
And I think Nate here, I think your dad gave you the finer pointers of how the gate works, right? Is that right?
Yeah, because back when he used to race, the gate would drop forward. So he told me to go line up right in front of the gate, just my tire touching the gate. And
The harder the pressure, the
Yeah.
better, right?
Right. Get
And
the
then-
launch.
Yeah. And then the gate drops and I pin it, and the gate ends up going all the way to back to my forks.
Yeah.
And I was like freaking out, just like jamming on my bars, trying to get it out. And I was just like freaking out. I didn't know what to do.
Well,
Luck-
at
lucky
least you were on the 110, so
Yeah.
it didn't stall,
Yeah.
right? Yeah, that would have been bad.
Nate, what are some of the biggest challenges you faced as a beginner racer?
Well, like definitely like starts, because everyone else was so much faster than me and they had faster bikes. Oh yeah, and then when I finally did get a faster bike, I got a 65. I go to line up on the gate and I dumped the clutch and I whee, just did
Yeah.
like a backflip.
Looped it out, huh?
And the kid right next to me did the exact same thing, except when he was like this, I was like that.
Did
So I was
did
just
that
like-
scare you?
Not really, but like after that, I was like, oh, that's sketchy. Like, I need to work on that. And after that, my back fender was sticking straight up. And then, yeah, and then I was trying to get the bike started and it wouldn't start.
What about you, Jake? You got any cool war stories from the first couple of months there?
I just remember, like, after the first few races, like, getting some buddies that I've just always will have memories with, just, like, you know, doing dumb stuff, like, on pit bikes, like, the night before the race, like, hanging out with, like, the crazy moto dads that may have had a few too many.
So you're the reason we can't ride pitters down there.
We had some fun times.
That's
How
cool.
did you do on your first race? Remember? You told me you were telling me about that.
So on my first race, I remember so it was a New Year's race. There was 3 motos. My first 2 motos, I stalled it on the gate. And then I'm actually buddies with him now, but there was some guy, because I was sitting in the back of the, like, pits, just, like, trying to figure it out. Like, I couldn't figure out the clutch. And this guy was just like, hey, like, try this. And I tried it, and I was like, third moto, got a pretty good start. But I just remember I looked overall, and I got 27th place in the 85 beginner class. And I was like, I didn't even care. I was just like, that was a fun race. And I was actually battling with one of my good friends now, Cooper Jones, and we were the whole race, every moto, just battling.
And what year was this? Was this 21 or 20?
Yeah, 2021, just like January 1st.
Gotcha. Okay. So that would have been the year that we probably met you guys at Mountain West then. I think it was 21.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Or was it 22?
it might have been 22.
I think it was 21.
I think it was late 21 because
Yeah.
you had just got your 85.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. So yeah. So we first met these guys. It must have been late in the season of 21. Logan had just got an 85, and I think that was one of his first rides. Was at Mountain West. We were doing some race up there. I can't remember which one.
Yeah, that was
Was it
my
the Halloween?
Yeah.
Was it the
Yeah.
Halloween Classic?
Yeah, that was actually my first race on the 85, right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah, I remember it was like my first actually pretty good race that I really got up there. I pulled Holeshot and then ran out of gas right after. And then
We're still learning about those kind of things. I can't believe that happened.
or maybe it was a different race that happened, but I remember I'm pretty sure it was my first race at Mountain West when I was in first, and then I go down the backside of the step up and I cross-rutted, and I just started swapping, and then I just boom,
Close to your mic.
and then I
there.
just smacked the floor, and then I got up, and then I was so pissed off because I finished third, and I was like, I could have won that. Yeah, it was just annoying to me.
So did that crash scare you at all? Did he have any more motos after that, and did that affect any of them?
I'm not sure if I did have any other motos. I think that was my last one. Yeah, and I remember I ended up getting third overall, and it was top 33% for a trophy, and there were 9 kids in my class or something, so they only gave it to the top 2. And I came back and I was all upset that I didn't get a trophy, and then Mom was there, right?
I don't know. All I know is that
I was super upset, and
I
he
went
saw
up.
me.
I went up and said, "Hey, are you sure you guys don't want a trophy, the podium?" And
Yeah.
they were like, "Here you go." And it was this beautiful Halloween trophy.
Right. Yeah, I remember. I think we've got one or two of the little ones to it.
Yeah.
But you had, I mean, he quit after a second race.
Yeah, because I came over the finish line, which was the gravity at the time. It was when it was like the big step up out of the like hole, and I went up and I was like going, and then I crossed my line, and the kid that was in first, I was getting the white flag, he was getting the checkered, and he comes over and he sent it like he would have cased that like the crap out of that out of the gravity, but I was right there and he just landed right on me.
He
And-
still cased it. He just cased it on you.
yeah.
Now this was the gravity going the other way, right?
Yeah.
The up one.
Oh, I miss
Step
those
up.
days
On the 110.
Yeah.
on the 110.
I missed that track, that layout.
Me too. Like I started hitting it like right. I have no clue that they changed. About to change it, so I started hitting it the last day they were going to change it. So then I finally started hitting it on my 85, and then after that I continued hitting that. Then I built up confidence to hit it on my 65. Then got really good at that. I'm like, Dad, next time they have a race, which is like this coming weekend, and we show up and it's going the opposite way. So I'm like, come on, because I never got to hit it in the race.
Yeah, I was kind of annoyed too because I had just like gotten my 65 and I started like hitting all the jumps. I never sent the gravity though. I was too scared to do that. But I started like doubling a lot of the jumps, and then we were about to go to one of our races, and one of our friends calls us and they're like, "Bro, they flipped the whole track." And then we're like, "What?" We're like, "No way." Like, we just didn't believe it, and we were happy at first. Then I'm like, and then I got kind of annoyed because I'm like, I just started hitting everything.
Right.
Yeah.
And you had one of the most, I don't know if it was that same year, you had one of the gnarliest crashes I've ever seen
Yeah.
up in Cache Valley, right?
Yeah, 2022. I was pretty new to the I was on a 125 KTM. Actually, yeah, it was like I had it for like a month, I think. And the week before, I was hitting the like 100-foot Jordan River triple that they just put in, and it was like I felt really good on the bike. I'd never done a Grand Prix before, and I was just went out, got a good start, was literally like maybe 30 seconds into the race, like, and came over that jump. And I remember on practice, all of the jumps were just like totally steep, like never, like you'd go to the moon, like it was crazy. And then I remember I was trying to pass someone going over that jump, and I took the inside, and it was the first race of the day, so it was just all muddy, and I just hit the soft spot and totally just flipped, and then I landed, and my handlebars got caught in my helmet, and I went around for another time. And then
You'll have to send us that footage if you want. We
Yeah.
can put it on the show while you're describing that, because
yeah.
it really is a pretty incredible crash when you see it. I remember looking at that on Instagram and just being like, oh my gosh.
Yeah.
It was.
I sent it to Motocross Fails on Instagram. Like, they have hundreds of thousands of followers.
Yeah.
And they posted it like the day I sent it to them. And I'm pretty sure like the last time they posted it was like a month ago. Like, they keep reposting
Is that
it.
right?
Like, oh, this sent in by Jake, like this. And then everyone in the comments, that's got to be the crazy. Like, I've never seen a crash like that before. And I was like, that's me. Is he alive? Is he paralyzed? I'm like, I'm alive.
How was it? I mean, did you like literally walk away from that, or did you limp?
I remember I was still had consciousness and crawled off the track because I was just like all the adrenaline pumping. Because I knew that with those GPs, I wasn't the first. I was the first row, so I knew that there was people behind me coming. So I just crawled off the track, and then as soon as I knew I was safe, just out like a light. Just
Is that right? Lost
Yeah.
consciousness. Huh?
Yeah.
Wow.
And then I just remember waking up, and I was like, just the razor was there next to me, and everyone was just like totally like freaking out because I knew what happened. Like I can remember, I can like play it back in my head, just me just like face straight to the ground, and it's just like
So I was chasing him from the start on my 125, my TTR, and I saw the crash, but I didn't know it was him.
Oh.
And interestingly enough, the worst part about GPs, they're gone and you don't know where they are and you worry about them.
Right.
Well, Mom was standing on the trailer on the deck, and the jump right in front of her was the jump that he crashed.
Oh, geez.
So I jump over the fence and run over to help this kid, and she's just like, "Oh, what a nice guy. He's going to go help that poor kid." And then she's looking and she goes, "That's my kid." And I get over there and I'm like, "You're done, dude." And he'd woke up by then. I said, "You're done." And he looks at me and he goes, "For today."
Is that right? Wow.
He probably doesn't even remember that. But he had the tiniest avulsion fracture on his foot. I mean, come on.
But my neck and back too.
Well, oh yeah, I could show you the x-rays. Maybe I will.
We never checked out my nose, but my nose was pretty bad. It hurt pretty bad.
You fractured your back? Is that?
It was like out of place.
No,
like,
okay.
His x-rays were as sketchy as his crash. I mean, I looked at that and I'm like, normally you don't see x-rays like that from one crash, but
Yeah, and my dad texted me the video, and I didn't notice because my phone was like, the ringer was on silent, and they call me, and then my dad's like, "Did you see the video I sent you?" I'm like, "No," and he's like, "Oh, like Jake got hurt," and he said, "Just watch the video." I'm like, "Okay," and then instantly I'm like, "Holy, is he okay?" I'm like, and I was like, "Oh frick." And I thought that he was going to be done because, like, that was a really bad crash.
So you guys do you have something else to add to that?
I also just remember I was, this is just like funny. I just remember I was coming off the track, like in the Razor, just sitting in the passenger seat, just like, and I like opened my eyes and all my friends are on the gate, like, "Yo, like, are you okay? Like, what's going on?" And I just look at them and I smile and I go, I just remember, and they're all like, "What?" Like he just did it like a double front flip, and he just smiled and like waved at me, like, "What is he doing?"
enjoying that crash. He enjoyed that crash.
And then I remember we drove the whole 6 hours home, and I was begging to go to the ER, like, "I'm in pain." Yeah.
I had access to an x-ray machine at home, so I just thought I'd rather get my own x-rays.
It
Yeah.
was pretty sketchy, our setup in the truck with my leg like sitting on the center console. My wrist was so like sprained I couldn't even like write. I couldn't even like my other ankle was somehow sprained both ways, like twisted both ways, so I had to be in a wheelchair.
Well, somehow you'll be able to see when you see the crash. So
Yeah.
Well, yeah, I mean, you got the right guy as a dad. I know Chris has wandered over more than once and thrown
Oh,
Logan
yeah.
back in, thrown him up on a tailgate and popped him back in. So it's always nice to have Chris at the track. huh?
Yes, especially for my wrists.
Yeah, you're a wrist master, man. Yeah, you can't ever seem to get those in, but you pop them right in for him.
Yeah, like sometimes I'll be doing training at Mesquite, and I'll hit the finish line and I'll case it, and then I'll be like, "Oh, my wrist kind of hurts," and then I'll like at one point it'll just be like, "Oh frick, I like can't hang on." I'm like, "What's going on?" And so I go back to my dad. I'm like, "My wrist hurts and I like can't hang on," and he's like, "Okay," and then he popped it back into place. I'm like, "Oh, that feels so much better."
Man, he sounds like a handy dude to have around.
Yeah, and he's probably popped it in like 5 times. Like I've popped my wrist out of place a bunch of times, but I always just go to him and then he pops it right back in, and it always feels so much better right after.
So you guys are cruising along, making gains, just doing awesome. Things seem to be good, and then
Something terrible happens.
then what happens, Chris?
well, it's interesting. Before that, though, Jake was got the attention of. He was giving this talk, and afterwards, this guy comes up to me and goes, "Is that your son?" And I said, "Yeah." He goes, "That was a really good talk, man. I want to get to know that guy because you know what? he talked about motorcycles, and I'm a race promoter. And I'm like, well, that's cool. And his name's Ed Wilson, but he just took an interest in Jake and then added Nathan on and just shared sponsors, and he does graphics.
Yeah, he's Avid MX.
Avid MX, and then he
think we've got him right here on my laptop. Yeah.
What else does he do for you, Jake?
Well, right here, hoodies for my Sketch Filmz and stickers, even just anything. He's helped me so much with everything, like even created all my logos. And yeah, he's just, I don't know what I would even do without him.
Seems like a really nice guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I love my graphics from him.
Yeah. All my friends get them from super good price. Like, and he's always just like, thank you for always giving me referrals. And like, it's not just like I do stuff for him and he just does stuff for me. It's like, it's nice. We both just help each other out with everything.
That's cool.
Well, things got pretty drastically changed there.
So what year is this then?
You know what?
January
I'm up.
23.
It's about almost exactly 2 years. Well, 2 years from the 24th, so we're almost there. But about 2 years ago, on January 24th of 23, Nate was bugging me after we got done with the practice, and he says, "Come on, man, you got to take me to Panda Express." And I'm like, anything but Panda. But all right, we go to Panda. And sure enough, done eating, and I'm like, I get this heartburn. I'm like, I don't like this. And so then he's like,
I'm like, can we please go to Cold Stone? Like, cause we had like on vacation, like I think a few weeks before we went to Disneyland, I think, and right next to our hotel there was a Cold Stone, and we tried it, and we're like, oh, that's so good. And there was one right next to the Panda. I'm like, oh, can we please go to Cold Stone? It's like my favorite ice cream place.
Well, so I'm like, well, maybe that's the antidote to the heartburn from the last place. Maybe I'll put out the fire, right? So anyway, we do that, and then we get in the truck and we're driving home, and Nathan starts hearing this.
Yeah, he kept having like the biggest hiccups like I've ever seen. He's like, and he was like, it sounded like he was dying almost. Like, and I'm like, what? I'm like, you're faking, right? And he's like, I'm not faking. I'm like, I don't believe you. Stop faking it.
Is that what it felt like? Was hiccups?
It was hiccups, actually.
Okay.
And so I got home, and when I got home, I felt some tingling on my right side, and I called my wife, and she goes, "What's wrong?" I'm like, "What do you mean?" She goes, "You're talking funny." And I'm talking fine. Anyway, you know the drill when your wife is asking questions and she's right.
Yeah.
She had a concern, but anyway, she comes home from book club or whatever, and by that time, she's a nurse practitioner. Actually, their major sponsor, Desert Bloom Healthcare, does makes it possible. But anyway, she's like, "There's something going on with you," and she tested me for all the stroke symptoms, and I passed with flying colors. And she says, "Well, I don't care. I still think you're having a stroke. I think you need to go to the ER." And I said, "Well, if you're not sure, they're going to do the same thing that you just did, only this time after 3 hours at the ER, I'm going to get sent home." Right. And so I said, "Just let me go to bed. If I have any symptoms through the night, I'll go to the ER, I promise." She didn't agree, but so I went to bed, woke up, and she goes, "How are you?" And I go, "I'm exactly the same. Got a little tingling. Otherwise, I'm talking better now because it was a new day."
Mm-hmm.
And so she goes, "Well, what are you going to do?" I said, "Well, I'm going to go to work." She says, No, you need to go to the ER. And I said, "Well, I have patients. Let me just see the morning patient." So anyway, she says, "Well, you're going to adjust me first." So I get there. I'm okay. I adjust her. Everything's great. Thought I did a great job. As soon as I got finished adjusting her neck, I started laughing. And I couldn't stop laughing.
Mm.
And she goes, "You're going right now." And I first of all, she's like, why are you laughing? And I'm like, I don't know why I'm laughing. I just can't stop laughing. And she says, you're going right now. And by this time I said, just bring that patient in the waiting room and let him come back so I can at least help him. And of course, by the time I got through doing the second adjustment of the day, I was starting to stagger a little bit. And by this time, she got all the other providers in the office, and they did an intervention and made me get in the car, and they're taking me to the ER. And anyway, try to make it this fast, but I get to the ER, and I'm like, I might be having a stroke. My wife thinks I might be having a stroke. And they said, well, it doesn't look like you're having a stroke. And I'm like, okay. So they did a workup, and they pretty extensive workup because they worked it up like a stroke, even though the triage said it's not a stroke. Anyway, then everybody got involved, and we even had some students and lots of interns. It was great, And they said, no, I think I don't know what it is either, but it's not having a stroke. So they do CT scan. Said definitely not a stroke because would have showed up in the CT scan. So anyway, they're coming back, and they're about to release me to go home. And I said, listen, I wouldn't have come here if there wasn't something wrong. And I really don't want to leave here until I get some answers. Well, what do you want? I want an MRI. And they said, well, we don't do MRIs because, the ER, we do CT scans. And I go, I realize that. Anyway, I convinced them to do an MRI. They did an MRI, and they came back just as shocked as could be that I had a left pontine stroke, which is an ischemic or an infarction, not a bleed, but an infarction of my brainstem on the left side. And they said, wow, so what did they do? So they sent me upstairs, observation, this and that, and then spent the night. And the next day, they just kind of said, well, you had a stroke. Your symptoms are going to wax and wane. And they were waning. They weren't waxing. But anyway, I just said, okay. So the doc comes in. It's like, what do you want to do? Super cool doc. Because he really was. I mean, he respected me, my position as a provider. And what do you want to do? You want to go home? Yeah, I want to go home. Of course I want to go home. So I thought it was going to be so great to surprise my wife. So I had a buddy of mine come and pick me up. And I was taking me to my wife's office, which was my office too. So I could surprise her. Surprise! I'm home. I'm home. And she was not happy. First of all, this pretty big guy that he kind of was dragging me. I thought I was walking, but I wasn't walking. So she said, go back. Tell him to take you back right now. You're going back to the ER. There's no way. And I don't know, at this point, maybe I wasn't smart enough to really start listening to my wife because I ended up home for 5 days. And anyway, what ultimately happened is 5 days later, I lost everything on the right side of my body. And I was still laughing, but everything was going downhill really fast.
Wow.
Lucky for me, she had a hyperbaric chamber at the office. She brought it home. She put me in there twice a day. She did some natural supplements. She just started working it up, everything that she could do for me. And I got more than one person telling me that I probably wouldn't have survived that week without that help.
Wow.
But anyway, I got myself into the rehab, and I met a guy there that just said, dude, I think you're still having a stroke. I think it's an ongoing stroke. You got to get back to ER. So I went back to ER, and guess what? They gave me an MRI right away. It's great. And they said, guess what? That stroke is now like this.
Oh, wow.
And that's why you are completely incapacitated. So they said, then you need to get in the rehab right away. And so I went to observation again and waited my turn, and they pulled some strings and got me into rehab. Spent a couple of weeks there, and I remember I made some incredible progress. I mean, but I was I was swinging for the fences. I mean, I really was going to make it count. So
Yeah, and I remember when I came home from school and he was in the hospital. I didn't know. And I'm like, Jake, where's Dad? And he's like, oh, he's in the hospital. He had a stroke. I'm like, I didn't really know what that was. So I'm like, okay. Kind of just brushed it off. I thought it was just something like little. And then my mom takes me to the hospital a few days later, and then I finally realized how like serious it actually was.
So Nate, Jake, did your dad's stroke scare you at all, and did that affect like how your home life was or at all?
Yeah, I mean, I was really scared that like I might not have a dad and without him, I probably, like, if he would have died, then we probably would have never raced moto again too.
Yeah, I certainly don't want to take time away from your guys' story, but it is interesting to hear how your doctors wouldn't give you an MRI. My first wife passed away from a brain aneurysm, and she received a CAT scan, and they were unsure. And then 7 hours later, when she was finally life flighted, they got her right in for an MRI where they could see the aneurysm and clearly see what was going on. And talking to the specialist there, his name was Dr. Reichman. He's world renowned, and he said the only way you'll ever really catch that kind of stuff is with an MRI. He says the CAT scan just doesn't have the imaging technology to tell you. And he told me specifically, he says there are way more people walking around with brain problems like that, like strokes and aneurysms, ready to go than you would think. And he said, if you're ever having headaches or anything like that, make sure you get an MRI because a CAT scan isn't going to do it. And then just a few years ago, I had a buddy at my shop that I was training, and his wife was having some similar symptoms to my wife. She was complaining about headaches that went on for about 2 weeks. And I looked at him and I said, dude, take that serious. I didn't take it serious. I didn't know. And I said, take it serious, go in. And so I insisted and told him what had happened to my wife. And he took his wife, he made his wife go to the doctor, and she requested an MRI. And the doctor's like, basically upon her request, told her she was nuts. She's fine. Don't worry about it. Everything looks normal. And he comes back the next day, and I said, dude, push the issue. And so his wife really didn't want to. She felt silly, but she went and said, I need an MRI. And sure enough, she had a brain problem. I'm trying to think of the name of it. Chiari malformation. Mm-hmm. It's the two lobes of the back of your brain slip down inside your spinal cord. Yep. And she had that going on. And when they figured that out, they said a small fender bender, maybe you're riding your horse and you get bucked off. Maybe the next time you have a kid and you're pushing hard, you would die before they found it. So yeah, get MRIs for brain stuff, people. Yeah, for sure. That's really amazing that in 2023 they were still not doing that.
Maybe they'll change the protocols. Maybe they will if we have something to say about it. That's for sure. But yeah, but that was really important to me. Backing up though, I remember laying on the couch before I ended up going back the second time when things were really bad. Like I was having trouble trying to move. I was like on the couch. I'm like, I'm really paralyzed. I really can't move. And I don't know, just something came over me where I'm like, this might be it. This might be the end. But what if this is as good as it gets for me right here? Mm-hmm. Do I want to live? Do I have value? Do I have worth? And for some strange reason, I just felt the answer was yes to all those questions. No, wait, yes to the yes. I really just felt like, okay, because I'm acknowledging where I'm at, I think I can get to a better place. And so that's when the work started for me.
You really just kind of hit bottom, it sounds like, and you were like, I'm either going to die or I'm going to make the climb, huh? That's kind of what it sounds like, yeah?
Yep.
What about you, Jake? How did all this sit with you?
Not very well. I just remember getting off work and my mom, or I was at work and my mom texted me and was just like telling me, and I was like, I didn't really understand, but I'm working with a bunch of older people, so they're just like, yo, like, if you need to leave right now, like, and you can have work off for the next few weeks, like, and I took that, and I was just like, I don't know, I kind of just was almost like numb to it, just kind of like didn't really understand if like what was going to happen, and like knowing that even if he is okay, like no matter what, it's probably going to happen again. Like that's kind of how they work. And like, just like, I don't know, there's just always that kind of like fear that's just like, it could happen any day. And like, you never really know like what could happen. Like not even just like stuff like that. Like even like my little brother could get in a car crash or something. Like it's just kind of like opened your eyes. Like you just gotta
makes it all real.
Yeah.
Brings it on home. Yeah.
So Nate, you mentioned that you turned to prayers during your dad's stroke. How did that help you through that hard time?
Well, I was just like really scared and I didn't know what to do, so I just prayed, and I don't know, I just kind of felt comforted even though I didn't hear anything. I just felt a lot better.
So you prayed and you felt like God was there helping you, and you just hoped for the best, and it all turned out well?
Yeah.
Kept your faith through the whole thing. That's cool. Well, yeah, it was, Logan had stopped racing by then. So we weren't seeing, people at the track, you guys included. So I was seeing just little bits and pieces. I was like, what's going on? There wasn't enough at first. I was like, what has happened? Something's happened. And then I picked up later on that it was a stroke. I don't think I really understood the severity of it until you actually, I think, contacted us later to like go riding or something, and we heard your story, and it was pretty incredible. I remember at the time, you're walking so much better now than when you came up at that point to take the boys out riding with us. You've made incredible progress, and it was really amazing to me to see. It was inspirational to see how you managed keeping these guys on the track, keeping them involved in motocross. At the same time, you're fighting this incredible battle. Tell us how you managed all of that at the same time.
Well, first of all, I made it through the rehab that they had to offer here, and they were great. They enjoyed working with me. I enjoyed working with them. But as far as getting my fine motor control or skills back, I had such a long way to go that, but I found NeuroIFRA, which is really the only place in the world, the best place in the world where you can get this fine motor control training.
Mm-hmm.
And as a chiropractor, I thought I know a lot about the brain and a lot about the nervous system, but man, I did not know anything about stroke. And that's where they really started teaching me the finer things about how I was going to get all the way better.
Right.
And so I go down there for 5 days, 5-6 hours a day. So I'm putting in like 25 hours in a week. And it was super intense. Anyway, I was doing that every quarter. And the Waleed is the founder of this entire system, and his wife worked with me, and then he worked with me, took an interest in me, and hopefully still have an interest in me because I'm not done getting better. But it was really amazing the progress that I could make. And at some point, I decided that, man, if I had a van that I could sleep in while I'm doing my training down there, it'd be great. So I ended up getting a van, and of course the boys figured out when I was going down there, and so next thing you know, the van's full of bikes, and then
Gotta ride them California tracks, man. Yeah, sounds like a perfect fit to me.
Yeah.
So anyway, next thing you know, but I'll tell you what, I mean, like having a neighbor at the track, like Derek Levitt, he just watched out for me, and I mean, everybody that knows me down there watched out for me and would help me. And Ed Wilson from Avid MX, he said, "Hey, I'm gonna take your bikes and all the boys' gear to Ohio to the national event down there for the Fire Police MX, and I want you to get on a plane with these boys and show up and race." And I was super stoked about that. And at that point, they were having to push me around in a wheelchair, and I mean, it wasn't easy to for them. I don't think. I mean, I was a pain for them, but we did it, and it was amazing. They were so successful on that track. I couldn't believe how well they did. So it was worth it for sure. But I had a lot of challenges. But then the next year comes by. Last year, was the month that we went back there and did that race again. Only this time Jake's flying, and me and Nate are driving the van, and that was a miserable trip. Oh my gosh, because it was so hot, and we didn't have any air conditioning except for when the fan's running, and
Right.
But fun times. I mean, that was a rough trip, but we got it done, and of course they rode so well that they ended up coming down to Paris and getting number 1 plates down there. But yeah, I just think that there was so much going on, and my wife just was so supportive of everything we were trying to do, and she's taking care of the business. She's pulling her hair out, I'm sure, but just made it all possible for us to keep going on. And one of the things, when he got landed on that day, I said, dude, you can't quit. You can quit racing, but you can't quit today. You got to finish your moto and finish the day. And he agreed to it. I didn't think he'd agree to it, but he agreed to it. And then he sat it out for a couple races, and then he just decided he wanted to come back. And so I'm just really impressed with what this sport has done for them, and how willing they are to be coached and to be taught, and to just always do their best and not quit,
Well, it's got to be inspirational to them too, to watch you. I mean, you're really setting a high bar for resilience and grit. I mean, with everything you've gone through. So, does that help to watch your dad being kind of a pioneer in that with everything he's going through? It's gotta kind of inspire you at some level. Yeah.
Yeah. And I remember I didn't really realize how much he really did, and how hard it was for him, until sometimes we would be driving home from Mesquite, and he would have to grab onto my shoulders just to make it into the house. Because he would get so tired, it'd be hard for him to walk.
Wow.
And then once I realized that, and then I realized it's hard for him. It's because he can't just go everywhere, go all over the track. He only has a certain amount of steps every day until gets really tired.
Right. Wow. That's an incredible story, you guys. I mean,
Yeah.
Unbelievable. And then a whole separate sidebar over here. We got Jake over here. Actually, what has it been, about 2 years now? Is that how long you've been doing Sketch Filmz?
Yeah, 2-3 years maybe.
Tell us about your business and how you got into it.
So I don't know, there's something I've always just, when I was starting motocross 2021, my friends would always be we'd always be posting Instagram reels, TikToks of just us riding. And it was so weird because none of my friends knew even how to put videos together. And I'd always just be on CapCut with all the funny filters and all the stuff, and just oh, Jake, will you put a video together for me? I'm like, sure. They didn't even realize how easy it was just to do that. So I was just okay. And then I remember my Sketch Filmz account originally was Miller Moto Edits or something like that. And it's just me with my phone, just going out, helping my friends just get riding videos just for fun. And then I just remember seeing Futz Films and all of them at the track, and just totally was just that's the camera high quality, because I was a racer too, and I loved like regionals and all the big races, just getting a nice edit, like get sick videos. So then I just remember I was like, I'll start this out. Like, had no idea what I was doing. Bought this camera for like $200 off Marketplace and went to Idaho and was training and was taking pictures of all my buddies. I was like, hey, $10, I'll get some pictures for you. Like, you know. And then that's where it started, just friends helping me out. And then I remember I finally upgraded to a Sony a6400, got better quality. I used that for a while. Like, probably could have filmed that with my eyes closed with that thing. Like, it knew it like the back of my hand.
Right.
But, and I just remember, like, slowly upping my prices, like, started, you know, editing on laptop, learning to color grade, learning all the stuff, and just, like, meeting new people. And, like, there's so many people that I film for that, like, just so consistent, like, hey, get me again, like, you know.
I've noticed that. I mean, in just recent months, I mean, the volume that you're putting out, the amount of people I see with Sketch Filmz edits has gone up exponentially.
Yeah.
So you must be extremely busy. So that's really cool, man.
Yeah, so that's why I recently have been upping my prices, just like, because it's just like sometimes I'm just like, hey, I can't, like, I'm booked out. I can't, I'm sorry. And just like, I don't know, even I've been just trying to like build up a portfolio on my Instagram. So I would just like, I'd be doing edits for people and I'd see like Jace Allred out on the track and I'm like, I'll get a couple of him throwing a fat whip. And then it turned into him texting me like, yo, like, get me an edit. Like, I'll pay you. Like, let's do something. And then like just making friends is just like all it's about. Like, even saw PK at the gas station one time. It was like, hey, like, let me know for videos. He's like, all right. Like, just like seeing people, making friends, like, and just, I just love doing it because every time I've been getting better. Like, even people like this last weekend were just like, hey, like, your video's like, dude, like, so much better. I'm like, thank you. Like, it's like honestly just fun to do. It's just like what I like doing.
Dude, it's been super cool to watch you build that business up and to see what you're doing with it. In fact, for those that don't know, Jake was one of the first people I reached out for our intro edit, and we got some of his greatest hits footage for our intro edit right here on the Holeshot Hustle. So when you're watching that intro, at least the first 2 or 3 videos are actually Jake from Sketch Filmz, and then we put a cut in of Logan from Red Creative, but yeah, we really appreciate you throwing that edit together. I mean, it turned out really good, man. So, well, that's awesome. Where do you think you're going from here?
Well, my goals for this year is I have a few buddies that are going to like Mammoth and some of those races, and I just was like, I'll tag along, get you a free edit, and then, you know, get everyone else there. So make some money and not even have to drive. But my biggest goal for this year is getting on the apprenticeship program with a on-track school to go to Loretta's, and it's kind of like they teach you how to film like at that race.
Oh,
and
really?
Like, yeah, you apply for it in June, so I'm kind of waiting for the first spot to open and just, you know.
That's cool. I didn't know they did something like that.
Yeah,
that's really cool.
You have to be 18 to film, and I'm 17, and my birthday's in September, and Loretta's is in August, so that's my shot at filming there. And next year I'll be 18, so I'll be good to go. But yeah, and maybe go pro nationals and just stuff like that.
Well, that's cool, man. I can't wait to see where you go with it.
So, Chris, what has motocross taught your family? Like, has motocross taught your family, like, patience, stay calm, or, like, what has motocross taught your family so far?
Well, I think that, like, you know, Jake's kind of been the one that's, you know, he ran into and ended up breaking his wrist, and we kind of went through the experience of, you know, well, actually he avoided surgery on that one, but no, he didn't. He didn't avoid surgery on that. But anyway, he just, I don't know, it's way tougher than I thought, than I ever was. I mean, and that's one side of it, the warrior side of it. But one of the things that we learned with Nate is that he's a little more emotional about the racing, and And so he, but what's been amazing to see with Nate is that his emotions with motocross turns into such passion, his passion for it. And some of the other moms, even the kids that made it to Loretta's, we went to regionals, we didn't make it to Loretta's this year, but they're just really impressed with the passion that he has and how upset he gets. But his mom has kind of taught him some techniques on how to calm down and get in the groove. And I really think that from parents' perspective is that we can't go to the racetrack with all this fear. We got to go there with some intention too, and our boys are going to be safe and do the best they can. And I really feel like that my wife's taught Nathan how to, when he gets really upset, how to calm himself down and get back in that groove, because Logan knows more than anybody that you can be in the groove and you can be out of the groove just like that.
Well, that might feed into my next question I had for you. Maybe you already answered it there, but what's the number one piece of advice you would give to the parent of a child that wants to get into moto or racing?
Well, my dad was right about wearing that helmet, first of all, but make sure the kids really realize the importance of protecting their head. I mean, boy, do I ever know how important it is. And just, having the proper gear. And man, these kids, I know what's happened, but they get on a 250 or 450 and want to go riding and go racing. And man, you got to start a little bit smaller and slower. I mean, I wish these guys would have been on bikes when they were 4 instead of 14.
I'd also like to add, I think it was good for me to learn, just how expensive motocross is. I'm not saying necessarily you got to be tell your 3-year-old kid to pay for his bike, but I just know a lot of people at the track, they're just oh yeah, my dad, go buy me a brand new factory edition and it's just whoa, you don't even realize, because then when they start getting their own money and they're just I don't even, how does my dad even afford this? Because that's how, I just really appreciate that I've kind of early on understood that, it's, there's a lot of people out there doing this sport that just, every penny, I
think that's cool that you have that understanding. You always respect something more when you've had to work to pay for it. I can't remember if it was you that we were discussing this later, but or earlier, but I think that's one of my main frustrations when I'm putting pressure on Logan. I find that it's usually from that financial angle. I've worked all week. I paid for the race fuel. I've paid for the parts. I've paid for the entry fees and the race fees. I've paid for this. I've paid for that. And then when I see him out on the track kind of phoning it in or not, giving it his best, I don't really care about results. But when I can see that he's just not giving his best and I've given my best all week, that's when sometimes the pressure part of me comes out come on, what are you, and then I have to kind of rein that in. But it usually does come from the financial angle. It is a lot of work that parents and dads especially go to try and pay for, the sport. I'm sure there's sports that are more expensive, but I don't know what.
I don't either.
Yeah.
Not in my world.
Right.
Nate, what are your long-term goals in motocross?
Well, when I'm older, I'm just gonna, even when I start to buy my own bikes and stuff like that, I just want to keep practicing. Even if I keep going to school, go to college, I just want to keep practicing and eventually get my pro card so I can race outdoors.
Very good.
Sounds like a great goal.
What about you, Jake? Do you have any long-term goals with motocross, or are you kind of heading off into filmography?
My goal for the rest of my life is to just own a dirt bike. I don't care what it is. I just want to have a bike in the garage that I can hit up my friends. Hey, let's go out, ride. Doesn't matter where, doesn't matter, I just want to have a bike and be able to ride.
I think that's outstanding, man. Well,
these boys, I know that I didn't I didn't have a lot of talent for motocross, but I have a lot of love for it. But these boys do have talent, and I really think that my perspective as a moto dad is to support them and push them when they need to be pushed. But I don't want them doing it for me.
Yeah.
And there's different coaching for different kids, so it doesn't mean that I hope I'm right with my boys, but there's great coaches out there that know how to get a pro, how to build a pro. I don't know, but I'm grateful that these guys have always they push themselves, but they've never just send it and not worry about it. I don't feel like they're the type that are just going to send it and hope they make it. I really feel like they visualize it first, and that's one of the other things as a parent that I want them to do is I want them to sit on the starting line, and I want them to visualize how their start's going to go, visualize going around the whole track, visualize that checkered flag and what position they're going to be in. And I think as parents, we need to help visualize that as well. But I think that's an important thing for them so they can ride fast and safe.
Yeah, like when I used to, so there's this table at Mesquite that at first I just kept casing it, and I was being careful about it, and then one time I just sent it. I'm like, oh, that was easy, but I cased it, and then I come around the next lap with just that much more speed, and I make it. And eventually I've just done it so much that I'm like, I just kind of just send it, like don't really think about it. But then one day my friend cuts me off, and I don't really see that there's a kicker in the lip, and I ended up having like one of my worst crashes just because I stopped thinking about something. Like even if it's like the smallest thing, like I ended up just like nose casing the jump, and just, my bike cartwheeled all the way to the corner
6 times.
Wow.
And I remember I just landed, and then I instantly just got up and sprinted off the track, and then I didn't even realize, but I like couldn't breathe. I got the wind knocked out of me. I got off the track. I went to go breathe. I'm like, oh crap, I can't breathe. And then I started freaking out, and then a bunch of people came over, and our friend Derek Levitt, he said it looked like you like died. Like he said it was so bad.
Well, we're glad you're still with us,
Yeah.
Nate.
Sadly, there's no video on like Jake's crash.
Well, what an incredible story with the Millers. If you guys don't know the Millers, you're missing out. It's one of the nicest families. These guys are just some of the most genuine people you'd ever want to meet, and we're glad to know them. And we really appreciate you guys coming in and sharing that story because, man, there's a lot of pieces to that story, and there's a lot of heart there. And Chris, we're glad you're on the mend and that you're doing as good as you are, and we wish you best of luck in making that last little bit of recovery. And before we close out, do you guys, if anybody wants to find out more about Sketch Filmz, about the Miller family, about Nate racing, give us the socials. Where can we find out more about you guys?
I'm on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram. It's Sketch Filmz, but instead of an S in the end of films, it's a Z. And
TikTok's back up now.
Yeah, TikTok's back. Hopefully,
CapCut's not. I'm a little bummed about that.
Yeah, now I'm happy. I'm not primarily using CapCut. I'm just like, oh yeah, I got the laptop. We're good. As long as you don't ban Premiere Pro, I'm all good.
Well, guys, we sure appreciate you coming in. Do you have?
Well, lucky for me, I have gone back to work, and I got some training on this Pro Adjuster, which helps me do my job even better than before. But I just Pro Adjuster SRT.com/Dr. C. Miller, and that's my landing page where you can kind of learn a little more about it. But I'm proud to be back to work, and it's been a long road. And I they say you're going to be done after about a year, and I'm going to be done. Yeah, I was done having strokes, but I'm not done recovering, and I got the rest of my life to recover, so I'm going to keep at it.
And you've been back at work since about Halloween?
Yeah, Halloween.
That's
exactly.
awesome. That's so awesome that you're back at it. And Logan and I can can vouch. Go see Chris if you want an excellent chiropractor. He's done a great job for us.
Yeah, he's like the best chiropractor I've ever went to, especially for my wrists.
And he does it. He's done it for us in less than ideal conditions. It's usually on the tailgate of a truck or the ramp of a cargo trailer or something like that. But he does excellent field work too. But go see him at his practice. Well, guys, any final thoughts before we close it out? We want to thank again the Millers for coming in and sharing their story, and we also want to thank everybody that's been blowing up our podcast on social media. You guys know who you are. I can't express my appreciation enough. Head over to YouTube to watch the full episodes. Please don't forget to subscribe. We really need the subscribers. So hit that subscribe button. Show Logan some love for this dream that he's got, and help us out. And I guess that's it. You want to close us out, bud?
Well, that's the end of today's episode on the Holeshot Hustle, and we'll see you next time.
See ya.